Are you afraid of using idioms because you think you're going to use them in the wrong context? Or maybe you're afraid of sounding funny when using it. Maybe you're not sure if you should place the idiom in the beginning, the middle, or the end of your statement. And so you avoid using idioms because they're just too difficult, not to memorize, but to use correctly. If you're feeling this way, don't worry. Millions of students around the world who want to use idioms don't do it. This is because most courses and most Instagram pages and YouTube videos focus only on teaching you the idioms and the meaning, but they don't focus on teaching you context. When should you use it? When should you avoid using it? But most importantly, where should you place the idiom in your sentences when you're speaking? The beginning, middle, or the end? In this video, I'm going to show you 3 secret tips of where you can place idioms strategically so that you never feel afraid of using them ever again. Enjoy. I'm going to show you 3 methods. Ama, that's very colloquial. Ama, which by the way, ama comes from I'm going to turned into I'm gonna, and I'm gonna turned into ama. All right. So I'm going to show you 3 methods. Stay till the end because the last method is a secret. And I say a secret because I don't know any English course that is teaching this right now. And a brief overview, I'm going to show you the method, sentence examples, and context with dialogues that will show you how to place the idiom in the right way, in the right order, and how to make it clear what your intentions are when using that idiom. So if you don't stay till the end, you won't be able to enjoy the class. So make sure that you stay till the end, my students, because at the end we do have a secret tip. So, okay, method 1. Before we start with method 1, let's talk about what idioms are. Obviously, idioms are there to make your sentences more vivid. It's like drawing a picture instead of just speaking. You're basically drawing a picture with your words. And this is important because sometimes what a lot of non native speakers do is they talk, they talk, and they talk, which is good. But sometimes you can talk less by just using an idiom, which is what natives do. So if we have a phrase like, you have to be brave and take risks, you can say that by just saying, fortune favors the bold. Bold means someone who's brave. And so a native will understand what you mean if you say fortune favors the bold, instead of telling them you have to be brave and take risks and do this and do that. That's fine. But sometimes it's okay just to use the idiom. So a lot of people aren't sure when to use the idioms. They feel unnatural and they don't know how to fit them into conversations. So what's the first method? I call this one the title idiom. Title? What do you mean, teacher? And it's using idioms to start your thought. Again, we're learning where to place idioms strategically so that you don't feel lost when using them. Of course, this works if you learn the idiom first. The title idiom is used to set the tone or the vibe, la vibra, of what you're going to say. It makes your point and intentions clear from the beginning. It's like a title for what you want to say, right? You see here that we have a title, how to use idioms the right way. You know what I want to say. You already know what the class is going to be about. That is exactly what this idiom or this placement does. So for the first example, I want to show you about motivating someone, right? Let's say your friend is telling you, oh, work has been so challenging lately. I feel like I'm constantly putting out fires. Oh, what do I do? Well, you can tell them this. You say the idiom, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. That's the title of your thought, right? If the person is a native, they will know what you're saying. And that, by the way, that idiom, that means that strong people keep working hard even when things are difficult. It's usually used to encourage someone to not give up. So you say that when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. And then after that, you maybe talk a little bit about what you want to say. For example, you can say, "You've always been someone who works hard, even in tough situations. I'm sure you'll get through this, right? You'll be able to be okay after this situation, just like you always do." So notice the idiom is like an anchor, na ancla, to what you want to say. It anchors your intention and your point, and then you add thoughts and words to that idiom. Does that make sense? Let's look at another example. Let's say you want to motivate someone to take opportunities, to not miss opportunities, right? That's your motivation, that's your intention. For example, you have a friend who says, "Oh, I'm nervous about applying for that promotion. What if I fail? Oh, I'm not fluent enough. I need more confidence." Okay, you start with the idiom. Hey, fortune favors the bold. Taking risks is scary, but it's the only way to grow. If you don't try, you'll never know what could happen. You've got what it takes to succeed. So here you start with the idiom, which makes your intention clear. You're motivating them because that idiom means that people who take risks often find success. It's great for motivating someone to take action. You start it with the idiom and then you add to that idiom. And notice how I said, fortune favors the bold. It's a very common way of using an idiom. I've seen English teachers on Instagram use that intonation for everything they teach, which can be confusing because now students think that that's the normal way to speak. No. Pa, 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 pa. No, that intonation is very specific. And it's used with idioms and it's used in other situations too. But you can't just use it anytime you teach a word or phrase because it's you're confusing students if you're always using da 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 ba da ba da ba. No, in this case you're using it to call their attention. Fortune favors the bold, right? So nice. It's a nice way of viewing. I think you can even do it with this one. When the going gets tough, the tough gets going, and you can if you want to. So that's another way of using the title idiom in the beginning. Does that make sense, my students? I'm pretty sure that makes sense, right? I'll show you another example just in case, and then we'll go to the second method, okay? Preparation. You have someone is telling you, "I have a big presentation tomorrow, and I'm worried I'm going to forget something." Forewarned is forearmed. The title idiom. You start with the idiom, which, by the way, that means being prepared is going to help you handle challenges better, right? So, forewarned is forearmed. The more you prepare, the more confident you'll feel. Let's go over your slides one more time so you're ready for anything. Boom. The title idiom. Don't forget it. All right. Now, the next method is using the idiom at the end. Right? Wrap up means conclude. And these are very interesting because it serves several purposes, actually. One purpose is to say everything first and you leave the idiom at the end. It leaves a strong impression and makes your point stick, pegarse, to memorize in the listener's mind, right? So now you're using the idiom at the end. Let's see how it works. Person A says, "I feel like I'm not making progress with my fitness goals. It's so frustrating." And here we're focusing on patience, right? Now you're gonna say, "Hey, I get it. It feels slow sometimes, but remember, every little step you take adds up." You can stop there if you want, but no, you're going to use an idiom. Rome wasn't built in a day. Now, in this case, it's kind of like in the middle, which is fine because you keep saying, keep going, you'll get there. By the way, Rome wasn't built in a day is an idiom that reminds people that great things take time. Right? I think Zamora or something like that is in Spanish. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's used to encourage patience and persistence. Now I'm going to remove this last part. Why? Because I'm focusing on specifically on idioms that go at the end of what you're saying. And this is a nice way of kind of signaling, señalándole, or it's like a signal to the other person that you've finished speaking.
An idiom has that function too sometimes, not always, right? So if you put it in the middle, it's fine. You can keep talking. But if it's at the end, you're kind of showing them, one, you're showing emphasis to what you're saying. It leaves a strong impression. But two, it's a signal for them to share their thoughts now, right? Does that make sense? It's an idiom that goes at the end of your thought, right? Okay, let's look at another example, teamwork. I'm struggling to get everyone on the same page at work. It feels impossible. That's what your friend says. And then you say, teamwork can be tough, but if you can get everyone to contribute, you'll see a big difference. Many hands make light work. Right? Again, we're gonna take this away because I do want to focus on it at the end. Many hands make light work is an idiom that means that tasks are easier when everyone helps out. So imagine many hands helping carry something. It makes it lighter. It makes it less heavy. So what's interesting is that you could have put this in the beginning, like the title idiom. Many hands make light work, and then you say teamwork can be tough. Blah 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 blah. Okay, but in this case, you're putting it at the end to stamp your statement, like a judge that puts a stamp, right? A stamp, cerrado, sellado, sealed, and it makes your opinion stronger and more vivid and more seriously accepted by the other person. Very important in business meetings if you're giving an opinion and your point is you're highlighting teamwork and maybe there's a need for teamwork. You express yourself. Teamwork is important, blah 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 blah, because blah 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 blah, and then at the end you say, you know, many hands make light work. Boom. And you end your opinion with an idiom. Oof. Sweet opinion, my students. This is a great technique if you really want to make your point known and taken seriously. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Now, before we move on to the next method, right, I want to tell you that this is just a taste of what it takes to really master idioms. And as you can tell, this is a bit different than anything you've ever heard because right now there's no English course that's talking about this. Look for it, you won't find it. Idiom placement, where are you going to find that? So this is just a taste because the students in my course, my students, they have access to a community where they can ask any questions they want about English. They can get feedback every day from natives. So, for example, Jennifer here did her homework using some idioms. And then Alexandra is here correcting her and telling her what she did good, but what she can improve on. The students also get 5 live fluency classes per week with trained native experts who motivate them, who are from different parts of the US. So they get 3 live practice rooms focused on conversation and everyday English. They get a live business class focused on el inglés laboral, so business English, talking about your coworkers, your employees, your employers, or asking for a raise, giving feedback at work. All that is important. That's the 4th class they get. And then they get a business meeting per week focused on presentations, mastering meetings, giving your opinions, being more polite in meetings, más educado en las reuniones. So they get that entire fluency experience. Tienen una manera de rastrear su progreso exacto, to track their progress. They have a speech analyzer, which is a speech button. Right now, we're the only course that has that it literally records your voice live using artificial intelligence, and it tells you your most common mistakes, your vocabulary stats, and it really is a great way to learn, my dear students, when you see this. Your estimated level after each class based on your performance. It's also a vocab tracker. So all of the phrases, all of the idioms that they learn, they memorize them because we place them on this platform. The students don't have to worry about, oh, did I write my notes? Oh, no, we do it for them. They just study and have fun and they learn and memorize idioms. It registers your progress. It shows you what you haven't studied, what you've learned. So the students really have a great time in these live classes. It shows you details on the vocabulary, the idioms that you've learned. It's a really nice platform that they use to study the definition, the translation, movie scene examples with those idioms so that they have no doubt of, oh, am I using it correctly, etc. And we have live classes with premium materials. For example, a nice way to learn an idiom, by the way, is to create an image. So we have an idiom like nail down. Nail is un clavo. Nail down is like to nail it down with a hammer. And that idiom means to make something certain or final. Finalizar, concretarlo, right? And so we create the images for the students because it helps you memorize idioms 10 times faster. So you see an idiom with a hammer and a nail and an agreement. So you connect the two thoughts. And of course, the students get sentence examples that they practice live. They get pronunciation feedback, context feedback. So the trained teachers tell them, don't do it like this, do it like this. We need to nail down the details of the contract before we proceed, etc. So if this is something that interests you, my students, before we continue with the free masterclass here, if this is something that you're interested in, you want to get a job interview, better pay, better position, schedule a demo call. There's a link down below and apply to work with us to become one of our students. Not everyone is accepted because it's not a course for everyone. You have to qualify. It's a premium course, it's not a cheap course. Trained experts, premium materials, but we do guarantee results. So if that's something that you want to see if you qualify for it, click the link and schedule a demo call. All right, let's continue with method three, right? Method three, right? We've seen the title idiom that goes at the beginning. We've seen the concluding idiom, which goes at the end. Another method of using idioms is less common, but it's great if you want to give advice. And is asking, have you heard of this idiom? Now, this is a strategic way of using an idiom because when you ask this, most of the time the native will have heard the idiom. Habrán escuchado el idiom. They know it. But this is great because if you want to introduce an idiom naturally, you want to explain the meaning to someone if you want, but it's usually more to give advice or to make a point. It's a nice way to soften your advice, tu consejo, because giving advice is something that you need to be careful with. You want to make sure you do it with tact, tacto, discerning. So doing it in this way, and so let's look at a few examples, my students. Self-care. You're motivating someone, giving them advice about taking care of themselves, which is, well, you have to be careful. The person says, I've been working nonstop and I barely have time for myself. Now you're going to give them advice. Have you ever heard of the idiom, you can't pour from an empty cup? Right? You let them respond. If they say yes, then you can give them the advice, which is this here. If you're burned out, you won't be able to give your best to others. Right? By the way, you can't pour from an empty cup is an idiom that means that self-care is important because you can't help others if you're not okay yourself. So if this cup is empty, which is the person, and I want to help someone, I can't help them if I'm empty. I need the energy. I need the time. I need the sleep, the food in my stomach to be able to help others. So by asking them, have you ever heard of the idiom you can't pour from an empty cup? Most of the time when natives do this, they know the other person has heard of it. And if they haven't, well, then you can explain it to them. Well, it means you have to take care of yourself first. So it's a very unique way of using an idiom because not all natives know all idioms because it's kind of dialectal sometimes. Depends on which dialect you're speaking of English or what part of the US you're from. But if they don't know it, then you can explain it to them like I'm doing here. It means that you have to take care of yourself first, which it makes it even more of an advice that can be taken by them. because you're explaining the idiom. They're like, oh, that's cool. I understand it. And then you give the advice. So it's like tres componentes en vez de dos, right? Three components, which is great because then you give the advice, right? So let's look at another example, showing that patience is a good thing. Someone says, I've been working so hard, but I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. You can say, I understand. Have you ever heard of the expression, good things come to those who wait? Right? They say no. Okay, if they say no, well, it means your hard work will pay off. If they say, yeah, I understand, I know what it means, then you can delete the explanation and then tell them, you have to be patient. Trust the process, it's worth it. So if they know the expression already, that's great. You can just give them the advice afterwards, right? This is the advice here. Right? Have you ever heard of the expression blah, 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 blah? Let them answer and then give the advice. Make sense? Yeah? Great. And then another example is here too, showing resilience. I feel like giving up on this project. Nothing is going right. Have you ever heard of the saying, fall 7 times, stand up 8? Which, by the way, that means resilience and perseverance is important. Every time you get back up, you're getting stronger and closer to success. And sometimes you might not even have to add to it. You might just be able to say the idiom as the advice. So if someone says, I feel like giving up, you say, have you ever heard of the saying, fall 7 times and stand up 8? And the person says, yeah, I've heard of it. You say, yeah. So, and then they understand it, right? So what have we seen, my students? We've seen 3 secret methods of placing idioms. The title idiom, which goes in the beginning, right? And you express your thoughts afterwards. We've seen the second method, which is using idioms at the end to make your point stronger and to signal to the other person that it's their turn to talk. And we've seen the third method, which is asking, have you heard of this idiom? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? And that's used to give advice, to make the advice softer, not too direct. And at the same time, someone may learn an idiom or two, which is interesting. So in conclusion, my dear students, focus on 1 or 2 idioms at a time when you're using them. Of course, you want to learn many. Use them in conversation. Practice using in different parts of your speech, the beginning, middle, or the end. Be a good listener. I would say that's the most important thing. Be a good listener. Don't focus on, oh, I got to use this idiom. No, just listen. If you're taking classes, if you're studying idioms, they will come to you naturally. And keep practicing. The more you use idioms, the more natural they'll feel. So this has been a great masterclass, my dear students. Follow or subscribe to this YouTube channel for more fluency tips that you don't find anywhere else. If you're kind of tired of just seeing the same thing on Instagram, oh, the word of the day, the phrase of the day, the idiom, and you want to learn methods to learn a language, like the ones I'm teaching you today, which you can see we kind of mix it. We mix teaching you idioms, but I'm teaching you how to learn them, which is more important, right? And that's all for now. Like this video, share it, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.